Ready to rock, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
All right. All right. Welcome to French Press Friday here on January 8th. This is my first interview of 2021. I'm very excited to have Pete Sampson here. Before we start with Pete, though, I just want to remind you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, if you're a Facebook or Twitter person, go on those and follow One Man Band. And I'm looking for suggestions of people to interview and to connect with more and more band directors, especially across the nation. So without any further ado, though, Pete, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great, no problem. Thank you.
Can I ask you, we're just going to start out with, what school you teach at and your grades.
I teach at Whiteland Community High School, which is a 9 through 12 high school in the suburban Indianapolis. And I teach 3 curricular concert bands, and we have 3 curricular concert bands, 3 curricular jazz bands, jazz combo, pep band, marching band. You know, the whole 9 yards of what all high school band is all about these days.
Yeah, but I did a little bit of reading on you, and when you started there, you did not have that many ensembles. You've grown that program.
No, when I started, I think it's my 13th year here. And I taught for 9 years prior to that at a smaller school. And when I got here, we had 2 concert bands and just started 2 jazz bands that year. The second jazz band was more like a combo. And so it's been fun to build. We have a tremendous feeder program, and that's been doing a great job. And so, yeah, it's been fun to watch the program grow from probably about 110, 115 kids to about 250 over the time that we've been here.
I didn't prep you to ask this question, but I'm just kind of curious if you could simplify what it takes to get more kids involved in the program. What would you say that is?
Well, number one, I mean, honestly, I think the key at the high school level is to have that relationship and to have that wonderful feeder program. I mean, if they don't start, they're not going to continue. And so we're, as I said, very fortunate to have a great feeder program. And with that, we also involve our feeder program directors in our high school program. And so our middle school band directors all take part in our marching band. I mean, they're all part of our staff. They're all directors on the field of equal value to myself and our other high school director. We all kind of team teach all together. That larger ensemble, which, marching band is marching band, and it's in Indiana especially, it's a beast of a thing to do, but it's also the most visible part of our program as far as to the community and all the stuff that they get to see. And so we take a lot of stock in making sure that the kids have a great experience. The competition aspect aside of it, just making sure that they have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that there's a big thing in there that about team, and it's really like those kind of things are developed through teamwork. And acknowledging your position in that team and what the other people contribute to it. Yeah, that's so let's talk a little bit about this year, because I think that's where we can get to some things. What's your status in Indiana? What's your teaching model right now?
The status of Indiana is terrible. We are probably matter of fact, right before Christmas, we were, I think, the 3rd worst infection rate in the world. Wow. Which is awesome. So our school, actually, the thing is, we started this year in a better place than most, which even within our state, we were full-time kids every day. Which is something that a lot of schools around here didn't have. And so we were really fortunate. Now, we had to do things differently. I mean, we were spaced out at 6 feet. We did jazz band in a different room in a more of kind of a kitten setup with woodwinds on one side and brass on the other and rhythm section in the center, just so we could have, that amount of kids in a room all together. And we split up woodwinds and brass in our concert bands consistently and only exclusively for the first 9 weeks of the year, just so we could have as many kids in the room as we could. Then right about fall break time, right about Thanksgiving time, we switched to the hybrid model. And so now we are hybrid, which means that we see half of our kids. And since we're on a block 8, we see every kid in their particular class 1 time a week in person. And so that means that I will see kids A through K on my concert bands on Monday, and then my jazz bands, I will see L through Z on Tuesday. Wednesday is completely virtual, so all the kids are not in the building and teachers are here just doing virtual. And then on Thursday, we see the other half of the alphabet concert bands. And on Friday, we see the other half of the alphabet on jazz bands. And the way the way our actual course structure is set up, or class structure is set up, is that we actually do see all of our concert bands on one day. And me and my assistant director, we co-teach those classes together. And then on the other day, we see all of our jazz bands, and we have percussion guard class and theory class on the other day. And so it alternates between the two. And I will say, kind of going back to your previous question, I was thinking about this, about how to keep kids in band. Another thing that I firmly believe in is giving them as many opportunities to find something that they love. And so jazz being a curricular course at our school, I think we keep a lot of kids in our program because they found that jazz is the thing that they love. And that being a passion of mine, I love it as well. And so if concert band's their thing, great. If marching band's their thing, great. If jazz band's their thing, great. Give them something to hang on to make sure that they want to be a part of the program.
So in that is a challenge to us as band directors to make sure that we're offering diversity in our program, because if we don't have that, I think a lot of times, especially with jazz, you find band directors that didn't grow up with jazz, and so they don't want to approach it.
Right.
They leave that out of their program, when you can do a lot with just a little, do your research, connect with the right people, but you can do a lot with a jazz program if you're just willing to start out.
Absolutely. And, it doesn't have to be a curricular thing. I mean, we're blessed. And that's one of the reasons why I took this job, is because there's curricular jazz. But in the school I taught at before this, it was 7 a.m. jazz. And anytime there was a snow, we didn't have jazz, and so and that drove me nuts. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here. But it's just a matter of finding a way to make it happen. At IMEA, our state conference last year, I actually gave a session called Jazz for the Non-Jazz Players. And what it was just basically hey, here is the grassroots of what jazz is, how to start jazz, what's important about jazz, and decoding the rhythm section, because that's what scares people off a lot of times. I don't know how to play piano, I don't know how to play guitar or bass, and just kind of doing that. But you're absolutely correct. And jazz doesn't have to be big band jazz. It can be combo jazz. It can be all these different aspects to give kids just another experience and a different type of music.
Yeah, so 2 follow-ups on that. One, do you have would there be a video of your presentation or a handout that would be helpful to people?
I have a handout. I have my PowerPoint presentation for sure.
Okay.
I can get that to you for sure.
Yeah, I'll include it in the links here on the in the bottom in the description. And then I kind of want to piggyback on that a little bit with, I think that now is a great time to experiment with things. And jazz is actually one of those things that I've found, it's like, oh my gosh, we can actually have a jazz band. Up until we don't have all the kids here. We've been hybrid for the most part, distance for the last few weeks. But when we were hybrid, I had a full jazz band. We're not curricular before school, but I had a full jazz band running before school. It was great. It was so much fun. It was one of the most fun things we had going. So now is a great time, especially with combo stuff, because if you've got small groups, there's so many great resources out there. We've got Dean Sorensen here in Minnesota, and his books. I've got all his books sitting around just ready to use. So
we actually, his Standard of Excellence jazz method books, I think, are the top shelf. I think they are exactly how you start. The way he approaches vocalizing the jazz, and the way he approaches, learning licks of the tunes and then going in and then kind of breaking it down almost in a combo setting and then putting it together with the big band. Those books are awesome. Matter of fact, our beginning jazz band rotates between both the intermediate and the advanced level books every year. That's how we start our kids at the high school level. Our middle school jazz band's kind of unique, and we have one of those come one, come all after school jazz bands of about 90 kids. And so it's the biggest jazz band you've ever seen. And there's oboes and tubas, but and are they learning jazz? Maybe not. Are they learning how to play in a jazz style? And more importantly, are they learning to like it? Absolutely. And that's what our program is able to kind of offer. Our high school is about 2,000 kids, and we have one middle school feeder. And so it is a very large middle school, obviously feeding a pretty decent sized high school. And so instead of having like 2 moderate sized middle schools, we have one big middle school that has 4 concert bands and stuff in there that feeds our high school. So it's a little bit of a unique situation that way too.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious, like what we were talking about, like your teaching models and the hybrid model that you're in. What's been the hardest thing during the hybrid for you? What's made it difficult?
I mean, to be perfectly honest, the kind of the tease we had at the beginning of the year of being regular, and then having to switch. I feel like if we were to have been hybrid from the beginning, that would have been a very different thing that we could have planned for and done a little better job of dealing with. But when you're suddenly thrust into it all of a sudden, like 3 weeks before performance dates, I think that was the hardest thing, because we had to cancel things
Yeah.
instead of being able to be like, we did an outdoor jazz concert in the fall. We went out to our marching band practice field. We put up our shell from our auditorium outside, and we had a great outdoor venue, and it was a lot of fun. And the kids got a chance to perform. And then we had it all planned to do an inside one. And we had it all planned. I mean, it was all approved by the health board. It was all approved by everybody. We're ready to go. And then it was just like, nope, we're done. We're canceled. And so that stunk. We could have been a lot more, thinking outside the box and making things work if we would have had the time to do that. So that was the most difficult thing, I think. The obvious is the hard part. It's not seeing the kids. It's not seeing them every other day or every week. And so we're in solo and ensemble mode right now. And we do that in our program. January is solo and ensemble. We pretty much pause concert bands, and we believe in everyone doing something solo and ensemble wise, whether it's a small ensemble or doing a solo. And so we give class time for that. And we go around and we work with the kids, and we kind of we require it in our top two groups. And we have them do it in the bottom group, and whether they take it to the state, performance is up to them, but they can do it in class if they want instead, but everyone's doing it. And so right now, we have a month or so until those recordings are due for our virtual solo ensemble this year with ISMA in Indiana. But I'm going to see the kids 5 times. So that's just, that's rough. And so what we've been talking to the kids about is that when we see you is progress check time. It is not, let's work on the music for the first time this week time. And that's, obviously easier said than done. And, the kids who are really motivated are going to have no problem, but the kids who are not, we're going to be pulling teeth, but it's still important to do, even if it's, come to Jesus in whole notes. I want you to play something, and I want you to hear what you sound like as an individual, instead of being, the seventh alto in a band where we never really get to hear you play.
Yeah. Has anything worked to motivate kids, or is it just the old fashioned communication and, kicking them in the butt a little bit?
My motivation, I think, for anything we do is I want the kids to feel like they're doing something at an excellent level, and so my fear, I guess, is because you instill that into the kids and you want them to feel like they're doing it at an excellent level. And then when they can't, they feel deflated. And I don't like that. And so it's almost finding a balance between those things, making sure that kids feel like they have the chance to do something excellent and that they're doing something as best that they can, but also being a little bit of a cheerleader at the end, going, the situation was what the situation was, and you did a great job for what that situation was.
Yeah.
I actually, right before I got on with you, I was recording a kid for an all-state audition. And because of the way it was, this was the first time I got to hear her. She did all the work on her own, because I was actually, my assistant director got COVID right before break. And so I was quarantined for the last week of school too, because obviously close contact to the person I share an office with. And so we were both out for that last week of school. And so a lot of those plans we had for that last week of school became teaching virtually and teaching online, which a lot of you are doing already, which is fine. But it's when you don't get the chance to make plans. And so when this kid did the best she could, and she really did a nice job, but it wasn't of the level I think she wanted it, and maybe I wanted it to be, because we just didn't have a chance to work on it together.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think it's that flux that has been really difficult, is especially if you can't anticipate it, like, when are we going to go into this model and this model?
right.
I've been pretty lucky in our district. They've been able to kind of forecast it with enough time to prepare.
Yeah, I hated how at the beginning of the year, and I knew it, and I said to everybody, we're lucky. We are so lucky. We're full. Everyone's here. We're doing stuff. We're able to have a 2.5 minute pregame marching band show. We're able to do these things. And then when the hammer drops, it's just like, okay, jazz bands went from playing full ensemble jazz to playing combo Christmas music. You just got to roll with the flow, and just do the best you can.
Yeah, and stay positive in that, because the kids need that. They need to see adults, adults having a hard time, but making the best of the situation that they can.
Yeah, and the thing I hated was having to cancel things. That's,
Yeah.
I wish we could have been more ready to do something different. The choir program here was on a kind of a different timetable of prep, and so they prepped for doing an online performance and were able to get something going and have a performance and stuff, which was great. But we unfortunately, because they had been rehearsing after school on a regular schedule like they always do for their show choirs, and so unfortunately, since we had to switch right in the middle of a prep, there was just no way to switch gears and be successful or have a performance we're proud of. And so it's just, you just have to cancel, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, we just moved our Disney trip for the 5th time. I mean, we had a Disney trip last spring break that got moved to May, that got moved to Thanksgiving, that got moved to this spring break, that now just got moved to June. So I mean, we're just doing what we can, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that a big focus on process, the kids maybe can get sick of that, but because we've had the same scenario where like we had concerts planned, it's like we were in the hybrid model, so we planned a concert around that, and then we flipped to distance, and so we haven't really had a concert, and so I've been just preaching to the kids about process, like we've got to champion that right now, and then hopefully that'll make us more prepared for the spring. Fingers crossed that we're going to go
Yep.
into some normalcy maybe. Okay, so I know you're doing solo and ensemble stuff right now, but I'd like to pick people's brains for compositions they're working on or composers that they're kind of digging at the moment. Is there anything that you'd like to share?
Well, we're still waiting on the final word from our state association of whether or not high school concert band contest will be a virtual or an in-person event. Now, is that going to change what we program? Maybe in some of our groups, if you know what I mean. If we know that
Yeah.
we're going to be on a hybrid a little longer and we're not going to be going to an in-person performance, I think that might change the way we approach what we decide to do. Especially Indiana is kind of known for being competitive as far as the band's things go, and everything's got a competition around it, for good or for bad. And what we do with our top group is we go in what's the state qualification round, which is where you're trying to make the top 16 groups to play to state finals. And whether or not we are going to program a state qualification type program versus a regular kind of not going to be, shooting for those top spots program, I think that's something we have to think about. Last year, when we were in school right before we shut down at spring break, like everyone in the nation did, we were working on Danzon #2 with our top group, and they loved it. They thought it was the absolute best thing ever, and they were very excited about it. And so since day one of this school year, the kids have been asking, can we keep playing that? Can we keep playing that? And so I think my decision on whether or not we continue to play that is going to be based on whether or not we're going to that state quals round or not, whether or not we want to pull that out and be able to do that. And opposite of last year, we chose that piece last year because it was of a state qualification level. I think this year we would probably play it if we were not going to a state qualification level, because I want to make sure that we're going to bite off a piece like that. It's got to be something that we can put a full bore effort into, bring in clinicians, do all the things that we want to do to be playing at an absolute excellent level. The other thing we're trying to do is, because we got cut off in our last prep, we're going to take at least one piece from our prior prep to help assist in the learning process for it, because we never really got very far in it. The kids never really got to perform it. We wanted to kind of give us a little bit of an edge as far as getting, making sure the kids have a good experience. I mean, we were working on some of the, like in our second band, we were doing March of the Belgian Paratroopers, classic. Everybody knows that tune. And so that's probably one that will, because that's a contest level kind of piece, at that level. So we're going to kind of continue that one through. But I'm a big believer in programming for what, the kids you have, not for the piece you want to play. And so I think we still need to kind of sit and measure a little bit what is going to be our strength. I mean, we know we have a strong horn section this year. We know that, the clarinet section is not the strongest that we've ever had this year. So we know where we want to program away and from. But I think it's still just kind of a work in progress. And jazz band as well. I've had to switch kind of gears a little bit with the hybrid model. We've had kids that have gone full virtual all of a sudden, and we've had kids that have even transferred to our academy outside of our regular kind of our credit recovery system here, because they weren't able to do what they wanted to do. And so, one of my best tenor soloists, my top tenor soloist, just this week, I found out she's not going to be in our program this semester. And so what you have programmed, it changes. And so we switched gears and found something that is going to be good for the kids and introduced it this week, and off we go. We're going to be playing a cool jazz piece. Our top jazz band is playing Madrid by Eric Morales, which is an awesome kind of grade 4, 3.5, 4 Latin tune. And then we're going to be playing a piece called Bebop in Georgia, which is a Mark Taylor arrangement, I believe, a Hal Leonard tune that is great because the brass can kind of, they have melody time and they have bop time, but it's really about this monster sax solo in the middle. And because of the way my alpha split happens, I feel like I can work with those saxophones a little bit more productively. And me being a saxophone player myself, I know that we can kind of break that down together and be successful at that.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I'm sorry, but on the flip side, my other jazz band, we were doing a really cool trombone feature because we have a really good trombone player in there that unfortunately wasn't able to be in our top group due to a conflict of schedule. And so she ended up being our second group, and I wanted to give her a feature, to be able to kind of, grow her that way. But when we're only playing 2 pieces for contest instead of 3, you can't really play a ballad. I mean, you can't open with a ballad or close with a ballad. And so we're having to bump that, further down the line. And so, it's also a matter of, how are we going to, be able to do the things we want to do? Who knows?
Yeah. I was going to say that I'm in a little bit of I won't say opposite, but a different position. We've been hybrid the whole year. And now in a week or two, it's a week now, we're going to have all the kids in 3 days a week.
Cool.
And so now I was doing a flex score and stuff because that's the only thing that was going to work. And now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got to get back into this traditional lit. And so I've been at the piano for like 2 days trying to figure out what's going to work. And to be honest, I'm not even sure where my strengths are this year because we just haven't had time as an ensemble. So
right.
It's fine. We'll be in time of discovery here together. And I'm picking on the lighter side so that we can get time to dig a little bit deeper in that stuff. So
I'm always of the mindset, with the exception of the competitive level kind of stuff I talked about. I'm always of the mindset of being really good rather than playing something hard. I mean, I'd rather the kids understand how to play something excellently rather than just kind of faking their way through it. I mean, we've all heard bands playing something way over their head that they probably shouldn't have been playing. And while it's a cool piece, I mean, a couple of years ago, I judged a band who played Lincolnshire at contest, and that was not a good choice for them, but they wanted to play it,
Yeah.
And so, honestly, as an adjudicator, that's a hard place to be because you want to be positive, but yet you're not hearing remotely what you should be on such a hard level piece. And so I'd much rather scale it back, especially this year. I'd much rather scale it back. But then what's that flip side? That flip side is I'm bored. I'm not excited about being in band because I'm not challenged by what we're playing. So it's a fine line, man. Absolutely. I hear you.
Yeah, and I'm giving out more music just to have some flexibility because like maybe it's going to hit, maybe they're going to be ready to go and ready to work, and so we'll pull out some of that harder stuff. But
what's kind of funny? We had a similar situation to you, but kind of actually very similar. We bought a whole bunch of flex stuff because we were thinking we might need it because we were thinking we couldn't actually fit our entire band in the band room with the just 6 feet spacing of everything. And then we actually did the math and found out that we actually could very, very tightly wall to wall literally fit, 55, 58, whatever that number was that we were trying to fit in our band room at 6 feet. We could barely make it work. And so we bought this flex stuff and we actually haven't had to use it because we switched and did that other stuff. And then we went hybrid and it all blew up anyways. So I have, 5 or 6 really cool flex band tunes. And you got to give credit to the composers and the publishers. They really stepped up and they knew that they could take some stuff that they had already done. They could turn it into flex scoring. And in just about every publisher really turned out some pretty good hybrid stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I bought a lot, and there's maybe 1 or 2 I would call, clunkers that won't get taken out again. But there's a couple things I got that I'm like, I'm going to take this piece out again when I need to be a little bit more flexible in my instrumentation.
And it wasn't all easy stuff either. I mean, they put out some stuff that was, solid 3.5 and 4 and flex that you're almost like, boy, that's almost chamber ensemble kind of level hard stuff to play, which is really cool to be able to challenge your kids at that level too.
Yeah, to Kelly and Mackie come out in my mind in particular. They really pumped some stuff out that was great. All right, so I always like to end on a positive note. So what things are you looking forward to either in the weeks to come or the months to come? What are you looking forward to?
Well, to be generic, obviously, I'm looking forward to hopefully finding some normalcy. Being able to get back to where we all want to be with some full ensembles and some kids here that we get to see on a regular basis. We actually have one jazz festival in our state that is still on. As far as actually having groups in to play, and I happen to play in the adult band, we're called the Directors Jazz Orchestra, that play at this event, and we have Jeff Coffin coming in as a guest artist, and we've been working on tunes, and it's been great, and stuff, and that is still on. And so I'm just every day, it's just like, please, let's have this. Let's actually go somewhere and play something. For the love of God, let's do that, because my kids are looking forward to it. They really want to be able to do that. And so that's something I'm really looking forward to. Hopefully it's going to be that way. And our winter groups still have, like our winter percussion and winter guard groups, our state associations are still doing contests. They found a way to make it work. No audience. You go, you play, you leave. Kind of no award ceremonies, all that stuff. But they're still getting to do it. And my wife is our dance and guard teacher in our program. And so it's been nice to be able to see those kids still have an opportunity to do that, because that was hard this fall, because we didn't have the chance to recruit guard kids, which you don't necessarily always have in your band program, and so we didn't really have a chance to recruit. And so to get those kids still interested and keep them in, we want to make sure that we don't lose that, part of our program as well.
Yeah. I'm sure Jeff Coffin's going to be a great clinician.
Oh yeah.
I was at a festival once with him, and he's fantastic. So I'm sure
Yeah.
that will be great.
Yeah, I had not, some of his tunes we had played a couple of times, and so I really liked, but some of them we hadn't. And I found his album and downloaded it. Man, it's just awesome. I mean, he's one of those guys that if you can divide time in a weird way, he's going to do it. And I think we have one tune. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 17/8 or something. I mean, it's just wild. You're sitting there trying to count it, and then all of a sudden he flips the metric on it. And so what used to be 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 is now 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2. And so you're just sitting there kind of just pounding your foot, hoping that you know where you're at. And but it's fun. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I thank you so much for your time, Pete. I hope we get to connect again sometime, because I just know from this conversation, from the things I've read about you, you're a great educator, and you've got a great program there in Indiana.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Absolutely. And stay safe, and good luck when you get those kids 3 days a week. That's awesome. I'm jealous right now, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.